Welcome to ESI For All, an Esports Insider podcast where we aim to shine a light on the diverse people and organisations that make up the esports community. Joining me today is Erin Ashley Simon, a multi-talented individual with an impressive array of titles to her name. Media personality, host, producer, consultant, and if that didn't keep her busy enough, also part owner of the esports organisation XSET. Throughout her career, Erin has collaborated with a variety of well-known endemic and non-endemic brands and dedicates herself to projects focusing on diversity and inclusion initiatives, striving to dismantle barriers within esports. So welcome, Erin.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Before we dive into everything about kind of your career and background, what's your favorite game?
Currently I've been playing a lot of Diablo with my friends. The new season came out, so I've been just like grinding that recently. So it definitely is one that I'm really enjoying right now. So I would say Diablo.
Amazing.
4.
I haven't got it myself, but I will be soon. I just don't have the time to quite put into it yet, but I'm sure that's one to really sink your teeth into. So you've had quite an extensive background, not only in esports and working for some high profile businesses as well as a freelancer. So let's start with the very beginning. Where did you start?
Oh man, so I started when I was 17 years old. I started covering sports media. And from there, that was like the beginning of my journey. And eventually went into being a sports journalist. And at that point, that was, I think, probably like 2015, around 2015. And then from there, I decided like, okay, I don't want to be a sports journalist anymore. So I decided to then transition. From there, I went into doing music media work. I worked for a television network in New York City. And then I just kind of continued moving forward from there. I eventually worked for like a media agency, and then eventually got to the point where in 2018, it was a very pivotal year where the company I was working for, myself and others got laid off. And so I was like, what do I really want to do? Like, what career do I want to take moving forward? And I've always been an avid gamer. Video games have been a part of my life for a very, very long time. And so I was like, I want to get into this industry. And so eventually I made my way over and I started doing some hosting work, and then soon enough locked down a gig with Cheddar Esports. And that was essentially like the beginning of my career in this space. And it really helped to have everything else transpire after that. So it was about like a 13 plus year journey. Try to condense it as much as possible. But I've been able to touch in all areas of entertainment, and all that experience has helped me lead to where I am now.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sure there's so many transferable skills from kind of sports to then general entertainment and then into gaming as well, because it all is kind of falls underneath that entertainment umbrella, doesn't it? But you mentioned being laid off in 2018 and then looking to be a freelancer for them onwards. What would you say your kind of biggest learnings and challenges were during that time?
I think that some of my biggest learnings and challenges was being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right.
Because at that time I was so used to 9 to 5s, and when I got out of that rhythm, I didn't know like what to do. I was applying to so many jobs, they were not hiring me, and so I was in a very, very uncomfortable state. And it really helped me learn that being patient and being patient while in an uncomfortable environment is not a bad thing. And if anything, it allows me to take the time to really assess what I want to do, where I want to go, what I want to work on. And it was the catalyst for what my career is now. But it really took me a while to understand like being patient and slowing down and being uncomfortable are okay, because they can be just momentary feelings.
Yeah, of course. And how did you find kind of transitioning into a freelance role? How did you find that?
So one of my friends, he had me write for a website, and I was covering kind of like the intersection of gaming and entertainment, and or even like nerd, like quote unquote nerd culture and entertainment. And from there, I was able to I covered the NBA's Esports League, and then from there started doing freelance hosting for them. And at that time, I wasn't even like expecting to have hosting be like my primary thing. It was just a situation where a friend of mine, he said, "Hey, there's a show they're doing. They need help. They definitely want to get a woman as a co-host, and I know you understand the landscape. We would love to have you." So I said, "Sure." And I did it more as kind of like a fun thing. But then that really led towards what I was, getting on Cheddar Esports after that. But that experience in terms of freelancing really helped me for when, it really led to my freelancing career overall. Because when I was at Cheddar Esports, it was more of like a full-time job because it was Monday to Friday at certain times. But it wasn't until 2020 when COVID hit that I really jumped full force into the freelance like career that I have currently, and being able to really navigate. So that early experience of just doing some freelance gigs prior to 2020 really helped set me up for like seeing kind of like the flexibility in it, and being like, oh, actually I like this. I like working for multiple people, not just for one person.
Yeah, that's awesome. You realize it kind of suited you down to the ground. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So let's talk about XSET. So you are, as well as kind of being a part owner, Chief Culture Officer, which is a role we don't really see that often, not just in esports, but also just in businesses in general. Why is that role so important to XSET?
It's important because I think that when you work in an industry that is universal and global, there's so many different nuances that come with cultural differences. Whether it's understanding the nuances of experiences with those who are different genders, different orientations, different countries, speaking different languages. So it's so important for us to be very mindful of those things. And so I really work with our team in terms of, really navigating those spaces, and really figuring out like how do we be mindful of these nuance things. We're not perfect, but we do try and keep these things in mind, and I work with the team to keep these things in mind. So it's like, for example, like if we sign a non-binary player, just certain things, the do's, the don'ts, how to really work with that. Or if we're working with specific underserved communities, understanding like, hey, with one community, we may not want to utilize PC games because a lot of the there's socioeconomic differences. So these are things that I do in addition to also, taking a lot of the experiences that I have in the entertainment space and the relationships I have in the entertainment space, and bringing them to intertwine them with gaming even more. It's already happening naturally. But what we try to do is we try to really find these synergetic points, and I work with our team to really create these synergetic points. So my role is very unique in the sense that it's not just DE&I, but it's also me taking the entertainment industry, entertainment culture, and bridging it with gaming culture, and working on those projects to do so, while navigating those nuances of different communities, different cultures, stuff like that. Because I'm very lucky. I'm someone who's in the middle of the entertainment side versus like the esports and gaming demographic. So I'm really able to be someone that can help to like in a very interesting way translate to both sides so they understand one another, and really explain like why like certain things don't work, why certain things work. So recently we brought on a head of marketing and some others, so it's been great to be able to like work with them and navigate the space while the the industry's changing and entertainment's changing.
Yeah, overall. That's awesome. And I think a really refreshing kind of take to have a role like this. I mean, do you think that other businesses should kind of like follow suit and also look at implementing something similar?
Yeah, I do. I think that there's just so many, when you work in an industry that there's so many different kinds of people. I always tell our team that we're going to handle things in the best way that we can, and have that consideration. My philosophy in terms of what we do, I always say support with purpose. There needs to be purpose behind what we do and what our support is versus not. And even sometimes when we do have the purpose and intention, it may, sometimes people may not be happy about that, and just understand that, like, that's okay. You can't please everyone. So even I think sometimes we need to have individuals who understand these nuances and understand D&I, and understand the connectivity between gaming, esports, and other areas and other verticals. Because, I mean, one, the esports industry is changing. We've seen, like, unfortunately, massive layoffs. We've seen massive budget cuts, different changes. So it's definitely going to require having people who can have these nuanced conversations and understand, why things went the way they did. And also understand that, like, there's opportunities in expanding the industry into other verticals and into other communities. And it's important to have people who understand it, so that, things are done the right way and are done with purpose. So I'm hoping that we'll see more individuals in the industry who focus in on this nuanced perspective, just because the world is so, like I said, it's so vast. There's so many different kinds of people. And it's important to be mindful of it. And more importantly, I think the one misconception that I think a lot of people have about D&I is that, a lot of people assume that D&I is just like, oh, you hire someone based on gender, you hire someone based on their, ethnicity. And that's not the case, right? It's about widening the talent pool and creating access to widen the talent pool, so you can get more of the best of the best. And sometimes the best of the best are people who are not in the industry, and sometimes they are. But you need to be able to create opportunities so that you can truly find all of the best of the best, because I personally believe that we don't fully have the best of the best in the industry. And then the other part of it too, when we talk about inclusivity, it's about creating a psychological safe space for people to be themselves. There are studies that show when people feel like they're psychologically safe and physically safe to be themselves, that's actually when the best output comes. And companies that typically have, and for those who, may not have, they may not have at their core about doing the right thing, which is fine. From a business perspective, companies that implement D&I initiatives and implement it into the ethos of the company actually have a 20% higher profitability increase. So it shows that the more diverse individuals you have, whether it's diversity in thinking, diversity in socioeconomic, diversity in communities, and so forth, the more that you have these different kinds of people, the more you're able to come up with solutions and come up with initiatives and projects to act and solutions to increase profits. So not only, do I personally think it's a good thing, but from a business perspective, it's a great thing, because you're going to end up making more money. There's studies that show that. So hopefully that's the case that we'll see in the industry.
You can't argue against that. I mean, hopefully we see more people taking your lead. So for those who don't really know too much about XSET, maybe tell people a little bit more about kind of what you guys are up to, and also your current initiatives, like what you're doing within the space.
Yeah, so we are, it's funny, we refer to ourselves as like a gaming lifestyle brand, because we're actually in the process of like expanding and redefining who we are, because we still believe in esports, but we feel like as a company and all of us, there's so much more to what we want to do, and so one of the things that we did is we just recently announced partnering with Cash Nasty and Chris London, originally from 2 Hype crew. And the thing with that is we say partner and not signed, because we actually are changing the way that we work with creators. We are creating more collaborative initiatives and aspects when it comes to other talent, and not have it be where it's just the talent sign to XSET. I think that I hope that we start to see more of that, where the structure of the programs that we're doing with talent is much more collaborative. And I think that that's something that we could potentially see within the esports space a lot more. We're starting to see also like talent that are taking on more like bigger roles than just being talent. Whether they are on an executive on the executive front, or taking a role in a company in addition to being talent. So I think it's been great for us to kind of like navigate that and to really build up these programs and these initiatives where we are working like with talent and working with creators. And so definitely expect to see a lot more unique and different things that we plan on doing at XSET, because we really are wanting to go outside the box even more when it comes to this industry based upon the actions and the programs and initiatives.
That's awesome. I love that kind of collaborative approach that you spoke about. So talking about esports more widely and inclusivity issues, what do you think the main barriers are that exist right now?
The fact that most of our tournaments and programs are based on PC. PC, I always say, it's a luxury. Not everyone can afford it, and also not everyone has good high-end internet. Although we do have mobile tournaments, mobile gaming, console tournaments, the pinnacle of esports is PC based. So we already are limiting various different individuals all over the world, just because that we have a lot of our top esports tournaments and leagues are PC based. So we're already eliminate a good portion of individuals. I also think that when it comes to even like hiring, right now we're seeing, it's interesting, we're seeing like the old guard versus the new guard that's happening, where there are some people in esports that don't want new people coming in, or feel like we have these investors and people coming in who are ruining the industry. And yeah, I feel like there are some people who came in and really like kind of messed up the industry. But I also think that there have been plenty of people who are non-endemics and came to this space and actually did good with the industry. I have various different friends who did not start their careers in esports, came into the scene and actually helped to improve it and to make it more professional. I still think the industry needs to be more professional. I don't think it's quite there. I think it's there needs to be a little bit more structure. Whether we see from like structuring when it comes to player salaries, when it comes to structuring of business and things like that. But I think that the more that we can get the learnings of people who are not from this industry, who can come in and work collaboratively with people who have been endemic in the scene for a while, I think that's when we can truly win. But I still think that there's a little bit of pushback and a little bit of a interesting kind of mindset towards those who are not from esports. So I truly believe that like those are areas that need inclusivity, and I'm hoping that will be the case later on.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of switching onto a different topic, earlier you talked about, we're seeing quite a lot of layoffs at the moment, and some people are referring to it as the esports winter. So many esports businesses are going through tough times right now. What would you say to organizations who might argue they can't afford to invest in D&I initiatives at the moment?
I think D&I should not be a separate thing. It should be something that is the actions of the individuals within the company. I think a lot of times when people think D&I, they're like, oh, okay, let's make a like separate department, or let's do this and call it D&I. When that doesn't do anything. It's more so about everyday actions that you do and take as individuals and as a company to create more psychological safety, physical safety for your employees so that they could do the best work. Even improving internal company communications and structures and things like that helps with D&I. Because also D&I and like an inclusivity part, it's also has components of like HR. It has components of internal company culture. And, you know, even if you do not have the budget to necessarily, quote unquote, fix it or work on D&I programs and initiatives externally, you can still do it internally by fixing your company culture, fixing processes, fixing specific things so that your employees feel great. And there's multiple things that you can do. Obviously, I won't say because I don't work for other companies, but if you don't, I mean, and another thing too is if you don't know what to do, there are certification programs that can help you with learning more about that. I know Cornell has a really good one. I did that one. And you can start with working in your company to make it more inclusive internally. And then, when you start getting more investment, like take it bit by bit. I think sometimes whenever, this is just generally in marketing, but I really feel like esports does this where it's like, oh, if it's not like a big wave or big numbers, like we can't do it. It's like, no, there's sometimes there's long-term initiatives that are like many wins that you hit over and over and over again that create consistency that will get you to that point. Not everything has to be a big social media announcement. So I would say to investors and individuals in this space, it's like, start with your company first, then you can start building outwards once you have more revenue and more money to have a budget allocated to do more projects. And then don't make D&I a separate thing. Figure out how to increase diversity and inclusion within everything that you're doing. There's like little steps and process and things that you can do for everything, even all the projects initiatives or even with hiring. So that's what I for sure.
I mean, I think with most kind of esports companies I've worked in, you don't have to have this like massive budget. Exactly what you were saying. It can just be small steps to making changes on the inside. So yeah, I love that answer. So in terms of XSET, do you see kind of D&I initiatives through a commercial lens? I mean, obviously it's something that you do as a company because, it's important and it's right at the kind of company culture, the core values of of XSET, but is there also a kind of commercial logic to them?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a commercial logic to it. I mean, when you have a variety of individuals, especially like talent creators and things like that, you have more opportunity for sponsorship, brand activation, and other revenue generating opportunities. So, even with like D&I, right? Like D&I doesn't have to just be education or an informative thing. It can also be just straight up entertainment, right? Like if you have a diverse set of creators, you have a much wider pool of brand activations and areas to tap into. The one thing that we've realized is, there still are sponsors and individuals that are investing into esports, but there are a lot of brands that like aren't. Like I've been in meetings where literally brands are saying, we don't care about esports anymore, or like we're not interested in esports. They're more interested in the entertainment lifestyle or other verticals that they can build upon. And so even having diverse talent in the sense of like talent who have different interests, different content, different things that they do, different audiences, it really does help on a commercial front and with developing revenue opportunities for the talent and also for the company.
Yeah, awesome. And one kind of final question before we go on to the recurring segment of the podcast. But as I was preparing for this show, I was actually reading about the Esports Internship Fund that you work on. Can you tell people a little bit about that? Because also when I'm not doing this, I work in collegiate esports in the UK, and so I thought that was really interesting, and we're starting to see some esports kind of scholarships happening, but I was just really interested to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the internship fund is a scholarship that's associated with my alma mater, the University of Kentucky, and it's basically a scholarship that is for uh, students who have financial aid, socioeconomically they're on a low income front, and it is a way to start opening up and creating opportunities, entry opportunities for those who are interested in esports gaming, or maybe they don't want to work in the industry, but utilizing gaming as a vehicle for success. That's something that I feel like is so important where, not every person has to work in the industry, but there are transferable skills that people can build up in certain capacities of the industry or based on the projects that they do that they can apply somewhere else. So, the first recipient, she's already through her first year of it. She has her second year, and I've been working with the esports program as well as those from my alma mater in terms of helping with establishing projects, figuring out what the student wants to do, helping with relationship building and network building, and really helping the student get their foot in the door. So if they want to proceed, sure. But if they don't want to, that's okay. I think that, there's many ways that we can use the industry beyond just like the value that we bring into the industry. And my whole philosophy is like, if every recipient of this scholarship is successful, that's what matters to me. I want them to be successful in life. They don't necessarily have to be coming into esports, but we're showing that gaming and esports can be used to help students grow, to build their skill sets, and to show that there are transferable skills that people can get from this industry. So it's used to not only help the student, but it's also used to show people the value of the industry, that it's not just quote unquote playing games. Like there's much more to it.
I love that. What an amazing kind of initiative. So cool. Okay, so the final thing we ask all of our guests is, if you were trapped on a desert island and you could only take 3 items with you, what would they be and why?
Ooh, I can only take 3 items.
I mean, maybe Diablo at the moment. Would you be taking Diablo with you?
I would probably take a Steam Deck.
Yep.
Oh, that's hard. I'd probably take a Steam Deck. Probably water.
Good shout. Yep.
And then the last thing I would take, honestly, I mean, it would probably just be like, actually no. Oh, that's hard. Yeah. Actually no. I'm not even bringing any electronics. I'm gonna bring a water, a hatchet, and a fire starter, because I would like to live. So, and electronics are no use on an island unless it has Wi-Fi. So those are the 3 things
I love it. Very practical. Very practical. I feel like we get a wide variety of different answers to this question. Some people are going fully practical and like, I'll bring a tarp and I'll bring this and that. And then other people are like, yeah, record player and records and electronics, like you were saying. So yeah, I love that you went fully practical. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Erin, for chatting with us today. It's been super interesting listening to you and your experience and what you're up to at XSET. So really appreciate you being here. And also, if you want to plug anything as well, of course, where can people find you? Where can people follow you?
People can find me at Erin A. Simon on all my social media platforms. They can also follow XSET at XSET, and then you can also find me at Real Gems with Erin. It's a podcast show that I created to really get gems from some of the biggest and most successful creators out there in gaming and outside of gaming. So you can find me there.
Yeah, awesome. And if anyone would like to keep up to date on what ESI For All are up to, make sure to follow us on social media and also on YouTube. You can subscribe. I've been your host, Becky Wright, and thank you so much for watching.